And this podcast is brought to you by the Repost Network. Repost Network. Monetize your SoundCloud content. Sign up today at repostnetwork.com. This is the power of pro wrestling. A podcast by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. And welcome to the Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast, the podcast by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. This is Robert Red, and on this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be joined by my friend Joe. So how you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing great. Let's get this show rolling.
Awesome. And we are actually, for this podcast, we are broadcasting live on my YouTube channel, so check it out. And also something that I want to plug before I get into the little spiel. If the Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast doesn't give you your wrestling fix, my friend Bradley, who's a past host and guest on the show, has launched a Tumblr blog that talks about wrestling. You can check it out at wrestlingfromringside.tumblr.com. I'll make sure to post it when this episode gets posted, it on the podcast. But for this episode, Joe, we are going to be talking about our top 5 moments of the wrestling world. We're going to go outside the ropes with 5 wrestling news stories. We're going to talk about Sting as WWE Champion. We're going to do our bold predictions. And we are going to discuss some good booking and bad booking decisions in wrestling. So we're going to kick it off with the top 5 moments. And I know you didn't really have a chance to watch a lot of wrestling this week. So I'm going to give my top 5 moments, and I'm going to allow you to kind of comment on them.
Awesome. Let's go for it.
Okay, so I normally do this in no particular order, but the last few I have been doing it from 5 to 1, so I'm going to kind of stick with that same format. So my number 5 is going to be from Raw, and it is the Beat the Clock match between Paige and Sasha Banks. So, the reason I like this was it was the last match in the Beat the Clock challenge, and Paige only had about less than 3 minutes or something. I don't remember the exact time. And the reason I love the match, it was just a feeling of desperation. Like I mentioned, Paige didn't have a lot of time to beat the clock. So it got down to about 20 seconds. Paige had just hit the rampage on Sasha Banks. And then Team Bad pulled her out of the ring and basically let time expire to where Paige wasn't able to beat the clock. So do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, consider that it's a Divas match, and you had that one in your top 5 favorite moments. I'm amazed because, not many people would say a Diva match would be one of the top matches. Usually a Divas match, especially even to beat the clock for the chance to face the Divas champion, is picking as one of the favorite matches. Because, like I said, a Divas match is usually a bathroom break time for fans or break time. So considering that a big pop-up, a plus note for a Divas division, especially Diva Revolution.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the Divas have been doing a lot better since then. So I'm going to move to my number 4, and it's going to stick with the women, and it's actually the Beautiful People reunion. So,
yeah.
So I'm sure you've heard about this. So on Impact this past Wednesday night, Velvet Sky came out and said she wanted to address the Dollhouse. She calls the Dollhouse and wants to fight. And it's fighting 3-on-1 against Rebel, Jade, and Marty Bell. And she gets a little bit of legs in before she starts getting beat down, and then all of a sudden out walks Angelina Love and Madison Rayne, and kind of the reformation of the Beautiful People. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Do you feel this was a good reunion for the Beautiful People, or just what do you think about that, Joe?
I think it is a good reunion for the Beautiful People, but also I feel like that it's a TNA version of the Divas Revolution. They trying to expose their TNA knockouts with this whole 3-on-3 like they do with the Bellas, and then the Paige, Charlotte,
and Becky Lynch.
They're trying to, it seems like to me TNA is using a lot of WWE ideas, and with them doing that, it's good for beautiful people to go out there, because I believe, my prediction in the future, that somehow they're going to end up on WWE. Consider what happened on last week's Raw, which everybody knows who made their return.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I could definitely see Velvet Sky making her WWE debut, which we should discuss in bold predictions. But I'm going to move on to my number 3, and it comes from WWE Raw, and it is Seth Rollins and John Cena confrontation from this past Monday Night's Raw. And with that, basically, Sting started off Raw this past week, and he kind of addressed Seth Rollins and said he wasn't half the man that Triple H was. And from there, he just kind of called him out. It's like, bring it, boy. I'm going to beat you for the title and stuff like that. So Seth Rollins says he's going to call him out. And he comes out at the end of the show, says he's going to call out Sting and stuff like that. And then John Cena comes out, and they had a confrontation and talks about how Seth Rollins is disposable, stuff like that. And John Cena basically says, I want my U.S. title rematch at Night of the Champions. And Stephanie McMahon grants it, I guess kind of against her will and stuff like that. Seth Rollins gets upset. So I just like the confrontation. I think it was good back and forth banter between Cena and Seth Rollins. They seem to have a good chemistry. That's probably why they have a lot of matches since Seth Rollins' heel turn. So I felt that was a good moment. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean,
my thoughts on that, it's I believe it's going to make a good I believe it's like a close to the end of John Cena's career. John Cena has some great views in the past with Edge, Triple H, with previous rivalries. But this one right here becomes a little personal now with him, with the U.S. champion. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of rivalry that one of my favorite wrestlers in the past had, and that's Shawn Michaels and Scott Hall with their rivalry with the Intercontinental title. This one kind of reminds me of that. And, this is Seth Rollins' high moments in his career. He's going to face of the company, and if he does beat Seth Rollins does beat John Cena, that proves that there's a new face on WWE, which would be him.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. Now I'm going to move on to my number 2, and it is Jay Lethal versus Hanson. And normally I don't put Ring of Honor matches on here very often, and so high on my list, but it was a great match. As you know, Jay Lethal is, since Best in the World, I should correct myself from last time. It wasn't Best of the Best, it was Best in the World, which was their June pay-per-view for Ring of Honor. Jay Lethal and Jay Briscoe had a match to determine the the Ring of Honor.
Wow, I'm about to say, you better correct
Yeah,
that.
I'm correcting myself. People would kill me if I didn't. So, the Ring of Honor TV and the Ring of Honor World Championship, and Jay Lethal won, and instead of unifying both belts, he decided he was going to defend them both. And hopefully to our listeners, that sounds awfully familiar to you there, considering what's been happening on WWE TV. But Hanson, which is like a new guy, he debuted last year, I believe, and he won the Top Prospect Tournament, which is kind of the way to showcase their new guys in Ring of Honor. And he was the number 1 contender for the TV title, and he had a TV title match, and I just felt that this was a great match between the two for the television title. Jay Lethal is at the top of his game. This is probably the best Jay Lethal has been in his career, in my opinion. After watching him so long in TNA, this is probably the best he has been so far. So, do you have any thoughts on this match, Joe?
It is. The Ring of Honor television title is their secondary title, and given Henson the chance for that title. He's only been there for 1 year, about a little over 1 year, and the TV title, it's probably the most respected title in Ring of Honor. Even though there's a title before, which is called the Pure Championship title, which I believe they should bring back, but Ring of Honor always got great matches, and Jay Lethal is one of the top indie wrestlers that WWE don't have or TNA have anymore. So, whatever match Jay Lethal's in, it's always going to be a great match.
Okay, and my number 1 moment, since we have a few minutes left in the segment, is the GFW Invasion. That was from Impact this past Wednesday, and specifically about the Invasion, it was a tag title match between Myers and Lee, which it's Brian Myers, which is formerly Kurt Hawkins, and Trevor Lee, which I don't really know a whole lot about him, but apparently he's a good indie talent, and he's from Cameron, North Carolina, which is the Hardy Boys territory. And basically what happened is Bobby Lashley had a match prior, or he got beat down by the GFW roster. Out come the Wolves to make the save. The GFW beats them down, and then out walks Karen Jarrett with the Feast or Fire briefcase that Magnus has won, and she says that Magnus has off-screen given the briefcase to them, so they allow Brian Myers and Trevor Lee to cash it in on the Wolves and pick up the titles. And I just feel the GFW Invasion, the hostile takeover from this past Wednesday's Impact was very good and very well done. So do you have any thoughts on this, Joe?
Yes. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea of this invasion angle. But once again, I'm a major, like I said in previous broadcasts, I'm a big WWE guy, and this is kind of reminds me more back in the day when WWE purchased the WCW brand, ECW brand, and the whole invasion angle, where WCW guys won WWE titles, and vice versa. And you know, in a way, I can see GFW do eventually take over TNA, and TNA will be gone. But this is a good way to expose, you know, it gives a little life to TNA. At the same time, it gives exposure to GFW, especially what's going on with some of the new faces that got going on in that company.
Okay, well, that's been our top 5. Feel free to leave your top 5 moments of the week. You can leave them in the comments below. You can leave them on my SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/ppwp, or you can tweet them to me, or just any type of social media. But that's all we have for this first segment. We'll be back right after this.
Hey, this is John Jones, and you're listening to the Power Pro Wrestling Podcast.
And it's now time to go outside the ropes with the Power Pro Wrestling. I'm still joined by Joe. So, you ready to talk about some news stories?
I'm ready for it, man. Bring it.
Okay, well, usually on the podcast, I'll leave you with this kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word, or caveat that it's hard for me to find 5 good news stories that I feel you guys, the listeners, will be able to listen to and be interested in. And it takes me almost to the day of the recording of the podcast to find good news stories. This week, it literally fell in my lap. It was harder for me to pick my top 5 moments than to find 5 news stories. So these are 5 great news stories that I feel you will be interested in. Everyone's probably talking about them. You're probably tired of hearing about them right now, but I felt if I didn't cover them, it would be an injustice. So I'm going to kick it off with the very first news story outside the week, and this happened, I believe, on Monday. WWE NXT diva Zeri Schreiber, however you say her name, was released from the WWE. And not thinking about this, knowing you were going to be on the show, Joe, but the reason she was released was because of Nazi paraphernalia and stuff like that, and supporting Nazis, almost, it seemed like that. So first off, how do you feel about the situation? Do you feel WWE handled the situation well? Just kind of what's your take on this?
To be honest with you, with nowadays, the Nazi situation happened like way before a lot of people's time. People who remembered back then the Nazis pretty much are either, you know, elderly or passed away. So considering what WWE had did release her, I think it's kind of wrong. You can suspend her, yes, I agree, or fine her for what she has done. But it comes to the releasing her just because her propaganda about posting some stuff from Nazi area, come on. It's just, I mean, it's no difference than somebody does something with a Confederate flag or even with the gay rights thing, you know, if you're going to, you know, it's all in the same category.
Yeah, and I mean, do you feel it was still wrong with their releasing her? Because my understanding, this was stuff that was posted before she was even employed in WWE, so you still feel WWE took the wrong measure?
Yes, it did, because they should have done this, they should have already know what her background is before they even gave her the appointment through WWE. Because like most employers, you go through background checks. You should have checked her status, check her previous year records to see what she had done in the past before you decided to hire her. So what they did is to fire after. That's kind of discrimination in a way.
Well, I mean, I do feel WWE maybe handled it the wrong way. I mean, like you mentioned, this was done before, so WWE should have checked in on her beforehand if they were going to hire her, knowing that. Because if this was posted prior to her coming to WWE, it shouldn't have been any shock that this resurfaced in WWE, and we're in very much a PC, political correct era. Because, I mean, if you look at just what happened to the Hogan thing and saying the N-word, people being offended by that, WWE was quick to remove them out of the Hall of Fame, stuff like that.
But that was he was employed at WWE at the time. But it'd be no difference than me. Me even say if I was hired into WWE and somehow they realized, oh, my grandpa was a Nazi, I'm gonna fire you. Okay, well, you're gonna judge me because of what happened in the past. You know, that's not me. And you know, same with her. It may not be her now, but what happened in the past happened in the past. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's a politically correct era. So if this was on prior to WWE should have not taken any action against her necessarily. I mean, they could have issued a press statement or stuff like that we do not support, stuff like that, and they could have handled it, I feel, a little better instead of releasing her. Now, also on that note, how do you feel this is going to affect Seth Rollins? Do you feel Seth Rollins is going to get any brunt of this situation? I mean,
Seth Rollins is right now the WWE pretty much top star right now. He's a world champion. He's been world champion since WrestleMania, and Seth Rollins is not going to do any effect. Yes, he's going to have some personal problems in his personal life because they might have a little heated, arguments about what's going on with her situation. But Seth Rollins, he's young. He has so many potentials in the future. And for guys like him, they go through women like crazy. So I give you a few more weeks and guarantee he probably find somebody else to be with. Sorry, that's just the way I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if he gets heat from this, then, I mean, he could obviously get a new girlfriend and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or he could have talked to her. Or hopefully this does not affect him because he's been doing such great work as a heel. He's been getting over with the fans as a heel. So, I mean, hopefully this does not impact him any at all.
WWE will not ever jeopardize their product. The main person is representing the company, and since he's representing the company, not just through the WWE universe, but also through the media outlets, with the ESPN and all that, they're not going to, they're not going to discriminate or discredit him what has with somebody else. I mean, he's not even married to the woman, so obviously it's not going to affect him. Now, if he were married, that might be a different story.
Okay, well, that's a good lead into actually our second news story that we're going to move to Bram. Now, Bram was actually arrested this week. Like I said, this was easy to pick news stories. I mean, it just kind of fell out from the sky. I don't know if God above just loved me this week or something.
God loves you, man.
Yeah, he's got to love me for this one. So, I mean, Bram basically was arrested this weekend. And obviously, I don't like anyone getting arrested for anything, but he was charged with false imprisonment and stuff like that of his girlfriend. So, I kind of wanted to get your take on this, of the whole Bram situation, and also we're going to bring this back to what we talked about in the first news story. Do you feel this is going to impact Charlotte in any way? So first of all, how do you feel about the situation, like maybe domestic violence and stuff like that? And then secondly, do you feel this is going to impact Charlotte in any way?
All this by Bram being arrested is all allegations. And there's no evidence. Well, there's been evidence, but he hasn't felt guilty. The thing says innocent until proven guilty. Until he's proven guilty, he's still innocent. So until he's proven guilty, this shouldn't affect anybody right now. Even with his current wife, I believe it's Charlotte still at the moment, and it will affect him as his professional career, because even though he's innocent, people still judge you and what you're being accused of, and so him making any impact back into wrestling, it's going to be very hard for him. But if he ever does found guilty of the situation, Charlotte's going to be harassed or picked on, or even probably be punished in some way, somehow, just the fact that she's still married to him. And even though she has nothing to do with this, because it's not her who's been, alleged abused, but she still feel the impact because she's still currently married to him.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, he has been punished by TNA. They sent out I believe they tweeted that he's been suspended indefinitely for right now. So, I mean, they have taken appropriate action. I mean,
TNA has, but WWE hasn't done anything when Charlotte comes to, how it will affect Charlotte's career, because right now they're trying to push her to be the next top diva, the way they're trying to put it, because, Ric Flair and all that. But, Bram is getting all the wrath, but like I said, until it goes to court and he's found guilty, then people has enough evidence to say, okay, we're going to carry this over to Charlotte and see what we can do. People like to come to celebrities in Hollywood. They're always trying to find dirt. And if they got the dirt, it doesn't matter against that person or somebody else. As long as you associate or married to the person, they're going to put her down. I can feel it.
Yeah. So let's move on to our third news story, and it's going to be about the man shot outside the WWE Performance Center. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners, and I'm sure you've heard about this, there was a man who was outside the Performance Center, I believe, on Monday, and he was stalking what is believed to be Lita, because he's obsessed with her and stuff like that, and he had a knife, and I don't know if he was going to attack anybody. I don't remember what the news story said, but police were called to the Performance Center, and they were trying to, I guess, de-escalate the situation, and the man would not listen to him, so he was shot outside the Performance Center.
Okay,
so,
before we continue, are you sure it wasn't our friend? Because he's very obsessed with Lita. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's who he was actually...
No, I'm talking about our friend, our close friend. Are you sure it's not him? Because I'm supposed to be talking to him. I haven't heard from him. Jackson Starr. He's a very obsessed leader. I'm just joking, you guys. I'm just trying to add a little humor to this broadcast.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
Yeah, so, yeah, let's let's not get anyone arrested on my podcast. So, but basically, what's your take on that? I mean, with the man being shot, I mean, do you feel they need to beef up security at the Performance Center? I mean, just kind of,
Yes.
do you feel WWE handles the situation? Just kind of, what's your thoughts?
You got consideration in the past. WWE didn't really have much of a permanent spot. Yes, they had the headquarters in Connecticut, but that was just the corporate office. But now they got an actual place where their WWE superstars, even their new talent, come in and train stuff. You're gonna have fans there, and you're gonna have those beyond excessive fans that's going to try their best to be there, stalkers. So I believe they should have extra security, or something to protect the performers. Because even though they're not made the mainstream, but they know, I know this person, this person's from the Indies, and they're going to try their best to be there and try to get autographs, even trying to go beyond by kidnapping, raping, whatever. So I believe they need to have a little extra security, just for the protection of the new talent coming in and out of that Performance Center.
Yeah, I agree. They need to beef up security, or they need to make sure that the performers that go in there are secure. They're in any workplace environment. The workers need to feel safe to go in that workplace or environment, or the work that's going to be done and the job and performances is going to be greatly hindered. So, I mean, you obviously need to make sure your workers feel safe in that. And it's just interesting, and that the WWE talent didn't stop them, because you got to realize you got all these wrestlers that are training to be wrestlers, or that probably could have taken the guy down easily. So, I mean, it was almost humorous that it had to go to the cops to take care of the man, and I don't know what he was thinking trying to stalk a wrestler, considering, I mean, if you remember the Daniel Bryan situation, which, shout out, I'm wearing a shirt right now, he subdued 2 robbers that broke into his house. I don't remember if it was last year or just sometime recently.
Oh, it's no difference than at a WWE live event. Somebody tried to stab Dean Ambrose. I mean, you got to make sure security is there, especially when you performers are out there performing live and thousands and thousands of people. You need to upgrade your security. It's not back in the late 90s. It's the 2000s now, and people have different ways to injure somebody now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So let's move on to our next news story, and this is not a very funny one. It is Jimmy Snuka was arrested this week on third-degree murder charges, which stem back from 1983. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this, Joe, and I'm going to tie this in. And apparently this is going to be the third time I get to mention this, but do you feel this is going to impact Tamina Snuka, which is his daughter that's currently performing in WWE? So first off, what's your take on the situation? Second, do you feel any repercussions or fallback will fall on Tamina Snuka?
I believe in double jeopardy. And Phil, I mean, it may not be the case, but he has been under this was a case opened back in the early 80s, 83, 84, and and they dropped the case, and now they want to bring the case up again. To me, it feels like more of a double jeopardy. They've dropped it before, so why bring it back up? I understand this is a cold case that nobody knew really what happened, but they should have, if it's been set back, if it's been, set to rest back in the 80s, they should have kept it then. And as comes to impact of his daughter, who's Tamina. Yes, it's going to affect her because she is his daughter. That's Jimmy Snuka's daughter, and it's going to affect her. Right now, it may not be affecting her at the moment, but once everything goes through in the court systems and there'll be an actual trial for her and everything, she's going to be emotional. She's going to be emotional because she is her dad in court, and then say if he does found guilty, it's going to put an impact on her emotional state and her physical state, because she's going to be too worried about what's going on with her dad, and she's not going to be able to focus on her performance in the ring, and she's going to be showing a lot of mishaps in the ring, and then probably going to release her because of all that. So, yes, it's going to affect her.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with her dad and such serious charges and stuff like that, and I do feel that, I mean, and I don't know personally and emotionally how she's going to feel about it. I mean, with my dad being dead, I mean, that obviously does have an impact on me. He didn't murder anybody or third degree allegedly murder his girlfriend and back in 1983. So, I mean, and it's quite interesting that they are reopening the case after so long, because you got to realize that was right before both of us were born, and we're like in our 30s. So it's just interesting that 30 years later that they're reopening the case. So, that's just interesting. But as far as Tamina, I don't know if this is going to impact her performance. I don't know if WWE wants to do anything with her, or if they're going to punish her in any way. I hope not, because I don't feel that she should get punished for what her dad did even before she was possibly born. So hopefully this does not impact Tamina in any negative way. So with that, let's move on to our last news story, and then we'll go to a quick break. It is the WrestleMania 34 bid. Philadelphia has put a bid to be the host site for WrestleMania 34. So do you feel this is going to be a good place to host WrestleMania? And do you feel maybe it's too early for WrestleMania 34 to be bidding that far out, considering we haven't even had WrestleMania 32 yet? That's still several months away.
ECW. No, it's never too early to make those bids. And why? Because if you make those predictions early enough, and you almost for certain it's going to happen, you built that fan base. You know, because the fans in Philly is like, okay, there's a whole big chance we're going to have here. You know what's going to happen? All those fans, they're going to rally up and they're going to prove WWE this is the spot doing it. And guess what? Guaranteed, somewhere, somehow, that market for WWE is going to go big. They're going to make a lot of money off that market over the Philly just because they want that come there. Because remember, WrestleMania brings revenue not just for that stadium they go to. It's bringing revenue to all the small stores and stuff. So guarantee all those businesses are going to go find some way to market WWE to be there. They're going to have their merchandise on the shelves. They're going to do that, and WWE knows it. That's why they're doing these early predictions. So, okay, we got 2 years, 2.5 years to place the bid, and we're going to put Philly up there to see how much revenue they can bring us. If they bring us enough, it's all about money. They're going to say how much revenue they can bring in. They bring them enough revenue. Oh yeah, y'all go for it. Just like the Super Bowl, the NFL, they always make, this 2 years from now we're going to be in this town. Why do it? Because they want to promote to bring that team. They want to bring that money. It's all about money.
Well, I definitely agree. I mean, this is probably a good move for WWE. I don't feel necessarily it is too early, because to just secure and make sure that you have a venue for WrestleMania a couple years out. That way you can promote it and stuff like that. And it's like you mentioned, businesses and stuff like that, and just the economic impact that WrestleMania brings on the city. It is good to go ahead and book arenas, because you got to consider that there may be other sports or stuff in there that may want that same arena.
Especially in Philly.
So you don't know if they may want a football game there, or a major live event happening there, or whatever. So it's always good to book an arena in advance, because if you don't book an arena in advance, you may not have that arena available. And like you said, WWE likes to promote and market stuff. Like right after WrestleMania 32, we'll hear where WrestleMania 33 is going to be done on that night. So, I mean, we already know that 32, right after, I think, WrestleMania 31 or the night of, we knew that 32 was going to be in Dallas. So, I mean, I feel it was a good move for them to go ahead and bid and stuff like that. But kind of leave your thoughts in the comments below of these 5 news stories. What do you think? Like, you can tweet me. You can post them in the comments on the SoundCloud, just whatever. Or just leave your thoughts on these. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this.
This is The Godfather, and you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling. Oh, yeah, podcast.
And it's now time for our discussion question on the Power of Pro Wrestling podcast. So I'm still joined by you, Joe. And our discussion question this week is quite the interesting one. As you know, on Raw, Sting returned last week, and he is now getting the challenge for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So my question to you, Joe, is at Sting at, I believe, 54 years old, should he be the WWE World Heavyweight Champion?
Yes, because there have been champions older than 54 years old before in the past. And considering that he's a former WCW World Champion, a former TNA World Champion, a former NWA World Champion, I should believe, even though he only wrestled one match in WWE and lost, he is still a contender for the WWE World Heavyweight title, just because he has that those record of the other world titles. He's a former world champion, so in my opinion, any former world champion with that type of record,
prestige
should have opportunity at a WWE World Heavyweight title.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that Sting, even at 54 years old, should still be able to win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Now, normally I wouldn't say a 54-year-old should win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, but really the factors that you have to look at is how healthy is he? What kind of a name is he? How can he perform in the ring? Stuff like that. Sting, I still feel, at his age of, I believe, is 54. I will have to fact check that after the podcast to make sure I'm right. It doesn't sound like an idiot. But at 54, Sting is as good as he's ever been and probably ever will be in the ring. He can still move around pretty well, although he lost to Triple H, like I mentioned, and like you were just talking about, the prestige of Sting and just having those former TNA champion, NWA champion, WCW champion. He just has the prestige and the lineage there to where he deserves to be a WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Now, Joe, what are your thoughts if, say, maybe if another 54-year-old, just an average 54-year-old man, do you feel that just any old average 54-year-old man should be WWE champion? Or, I mean, do you feel it's special circumstances? Or
I feel like in certain circumstances, saying, instance, I believe Hulk Hogan, when he came back and when he made his WWE, came back in the, I believe, 2002, something like that.
Yeah, it was 2002, yeah.
He came back. He became the undisputed champion for about a month. And, I believe he was beyond 54 at the time. And, you have certain wrestlers in the past that never really, or there's probably a couple of wrestlers in the past that never became world champion, and there are some people consider in the 50s as the prime years, the best years of your life. And like you said, I agree. It depends on your health. If you can pass the health, and you have the mentality, and you can bring the crowd, and if you have the star attraction, if you like a 4 or 5 star wrestler, compare a 2-star 54-year-old wrestler, it depends on what type of money you can bring in and what's your popularity would be.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. And just to kind of piggyback off that, is if you have the right story, like with Sting, he has the right story. If you remember Survivor Series 2014, he actually cost Team Authority, which Seth Rollins was the leader, or the win for the WWE to the Authority to go out of power. So, for him to be the top contender for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship just based off the prestige, it's a good storyline. So I don't feel his age should necessarily play a factor in this.
It's just like bringing Sting, okay, Hulk Hogan, okay. Say Christian, who's, say, down the road, 54 years old, if you want to give him a world title, no, because he doesn't, no offense to Christian fans out there, but he doesn't bring as much fans as most other wrestlers would do in the past.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Or that it needs to be certain wrestlers can do it and stuff like that. Like, as people get older, I don't know if it would be okay for them at 54 years old to be WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And it would have to be, if they did it, they'd have to have the right story and everything about it. But that's all the time we have for this segment. I kind of leave your thoughts. Do you feel Sting should be WWE World Heavyweight Champion? Do you feel it should matter about his age if he's World Heavyweight Champion? Do you feel he needs to have the right story? Do you feel any other guys who are 54-year-old can be World Heavyweight Champion? Just post it in the comments below. SoundCloud, or just tweet them to me. That's all the time we have left for this, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back after this.
This is John Ray, and you're listening to the Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast.
It is now time for our bold predictions on the Power of Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm still joined by my friend Joe, and we got some bold predictions. I'm going to give you a scenario, Joe, and you're going to tell me if you see it as a reality or not. So I'm going to start with Paige heel turn before the end of the year. Do you see this as a reality or not?
It's a reality. It's time for her to become heel. She's been a face too long, and plus, what I've been told before, her and this team of her with Charlotte and Becky Lynch, eventually she's going to be jealous, and she's going to be like, a lot of exposure be towards the new divas coming in, and she's going to be like, what about me? So, yes, heel turn it is.
I agree. I can definitely see it as a reality, especially after I think they started planting the seeds with this Beat the Clock challenge. Like I mentioned in the very first segment, I do feel that Paige is going to heel turn. I feel with Charlotte getting the title match, Paige is going to be like, what about me? I want to be Divas Champion, stuff like that again. And I think she's going to turn on her teammates. I mean, she's even been referring to PCB as her team. Whereas there should be no leaders and stuff like that. It's kind of the ideal of Charlotte and Becky. So I feel we're going to see a heel turn from Paige before the end of the year. Okay, second one is Eva Marie is NXT Women's Champion. Do you see that as a reality or not?
Yes, I do. Not this year, but of course next year. She was on the show Total Divas, and I believe that when you put a strap on somebody, you definitely bring the reality in Total Divas and part of with the diva, which is going to show, when you are a champion of a diva or world champion, you're going to represent the company. Plus, if you are in a show like Total Divas, you're representing the show too. So yes, I see her wearing the strap sometime next year.
Do I want her to win it? No. Is she going to win it? Realistically, probably yes, just for the simple fact WWE seems to be behind her. If you've been watching Total Divas, like you mentioned, they let Brian Kendrick train her privately instead of going down to Florida and NXT and stuff like that. They seem to be really getting behind Eva Marie. So as much as I hate to see it, I feel it's going to be a reality. Now, not in 2015, but I do see it in 2016 and to be a reality. So let's move on to, how about The Undertaker on Stone Cold's podcast in 2015? Do you see that as a reality or not?
Not relative to 2015. Not relative in 2015, but relative in 2016, of course. Because, Undertaker right now, he got this thing going. He's kind of still in and out of the scene of the wrestling. But when it gets time to close the WrestleMania season, that's when you see more of the Undertaker and more of promos and stuff. And doing the broadcast be one of his promos of whoever he be wrestling in WrestleMania.
Yeah, so I definitely don't see this as a reality in 2015. I agree with you. I do feel when Undertaker's going to be wrapping up his career that he might start doing shoot interviews and podcasts and stuff like that and being on Stone Cold's podcast. I don't feel it will be this year, but I feel at the end of his career he will do it. So I want to move on to Ethan Carter losing in 2015. Do you feel the streak is going to be broken in 2015?
EC3, no. I can see him carry the belt until at least sometime mid-March, close to WrestleMania for WWE. He's gonna be representing TNA all the way through because he has the physique, he has that charisma, and he's the golden boy of TNA. So they're gonna have him carry down the strap plus the undefeated streak.
Okay, I mean I definitely could see this possibly as being a reality for him to not be beaten in 2015. And it's possible at Bound for Glory if he has a match for Bound for Glory, which I'm not going to give any spoilers. I know he will. They'll have a match at 2015's Bound for Glory, but I don't know if the streak's going to be broken or not. I'm kind of doubtful. And we're going to move to the last one, which is Samoa Joe debuting on the main roster by the end of the year. Do you feel this will be a reality or not?
I feel like I want to, but everybody knows it probably won't be. He probably won't make his main roster debut until after the Royal Rumble 2016, because a lot of people make their debuts at the Royal Rumble, especially for the kickoff start for the WrestleMania. So I can see Samoa Joe get into the Rumble, make his debut that night, and then next night on Raw when he made the main event roster.
Okay. I agree. I don't necessarily think it will be 2015 that he will make his main roster debut, so I don't feel it's a reality for this year, but he could possibly be a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble like they did with Rusev, I think, in 2013 or 2014, and he had an awesome year. So, I mean, I could definitely see next year Samoa Joe debuting in the Royal Rumble and making his main roster debut and possibly even main roster debut and stay on the roster after WrestleMania season. So that's all the time we have for this. Leave your feedback, guys. I mean, do you feel that these moments are going to be a reality or not? Leave them in the comments below, soundcloud.com/ppwp, or you can leave them just any social media account to me, which I'll plug here right after this.
Hi, this is Joe Goodenmuth, and you listen to the Power Pro Wrestling broadcast.
And welcome to our final segment on the Power Pro Wrestling podcast. I'm still joined by Joe, and it is now time for our good booking, bad booking segment. I'm going to kind of give you a scenario, Joe, and you tell me if it was good booking or bad booking. And we're going to start with GFW Hostile Takeover. Do you feel that was good booking or bad booking?
Yeah, it's good booking because you were exposed to new company, a wrestling promotion, which is GFW. You bring them in with TNA. And TNA, it's been around since I believe 2002.
You're correct.
So if you it's just like if you introduce Ring of Honor or any other those promotions down to WWE, you get exposure, and then GFW being exposed by TNA with their exchanging talents, it's kind of give more of a wide range of to expose your company and expose the talent you have. So what they're doing is a great idea, great booking.
Yeah, I agree. It is good booking. And we're in the reality era of wrestling, and I feel just the way they're doing it, the dynamic that they are between Dixie Carter and Jeff Jarrett and dealing with the real-life scenario and real-life hatred and bringing it into a worked environment is great. So I love everything about the GFW Hostile Takeover. It's good booking for me. I just feel they should have done it a little bit better. Okay, let's go to Braun Strowman versus Dean Ambrose on Monday Night Raw. Good booking or bad booking?
I believe it's bad booking because Dean Ambrose, he's been around for a while, and I mean, Braun Strowman is a big guy, but to me, he still have a lot of green in him. When I mean green, he don't have much experience in the ring, and Dean Ambrose deserves much better than facing somebody with that less experience.
Yeah, I do agree this was bad booking in that scenario. Not that the match was bad or anything. I just feel they should have held off Braun Strowman and being a singles competitor for a while. I felt he should have been a bodyguard to Bray Wyatt and like that extra member and really kept the mistake about him and not give him a match so early. So I do feel it was bad booking. Okay, let's go to the Dudley Boys versus the New Day on Monday Night Raw.
That's a good booking because, I mean, New Day has some something fresh to compete, or in most cases, have somebody veterans to play with. When I mean play, we mean wrestle with, because New Day, they've been going through Pride Time players and some other wrestlers, and most of the tag teams right now are pretty new still, been now around maybe 2 or 3 years, but Douglas Boy's been around forever, back in the early 90s, so it'd be a new experience for the New Day to learn from.
I can agree this might be good booking just for the simple fact that it's a good match and stuff like that. I just feel it's bad booking for the simple fact of they should have held this match off and not did it so early. I felt you were giving away too much too soon, and this is a money match that they should have saved for at least Night of Champions, if not longer. So I felt this was bad booking in that respect. But, these two obviously having a match in the future would be good booking. So let me go to Myers and Lee win the tag titles on Impact Wrestling this week.
Bad booking. I believe the Wolves still deserves to keep the titles. With GFW having their team of Myers and Lee's coming in and, winning the tag titles just like that. I understand it's part of the division, but the Wolves are a better tag team than that. You don't just disvalue their team by just having them lose the titles within an instant like that. You respect, if you're a good booker, you keep the strap on a good team for a while and bring that prestige in the tag team titles even more. And the tag team titles have been changed a lot here lately.
I'm going to disagree with you. I feel this was good booking. Like I said, I like everything about the GFW invasion and just the way they played it off, having Magnus give the case to Karen Jarrett that they allowed Liam Myers to win the tag titles. It just adds more heat, and especially that they're doing a hostile takeover to take the TNA tag titles and put them in GFW and kind of, what are we going to do to get the titles back? I felt it was well done. And to end the segment, the Divas Beat the Clock Challenge. Do you feel that was good booking or bad booking?
It's good booking because it gives the Divas more of exposed to TV, be more than one match, and also Beat the Clock Challenge has always been known for male competitors to compete for the challenge with the world champion. So something for the Divas title, be great. Good booking.
It was innovative to let the Divas have the Beat the Clock Challenge, so it was good booking in that. It was bad booking in the fact of the matches were too short, in my opinion. They had Becky Lynch at the time at about 4 minutes, so with that, I don't feel that it was good booking. So, with that, that's all the time we have left on the Power Pro Wrestling podcast. Is there anything you want to say, Joe, before we go off the air? Is there you want to promote your Twitter, Facebook, any social networking stuff?
I have a Facebook account, which is Joe Young, a.k.a. Rage. Go ahead, hit on there, like it. And I also want to say thanks to Robert for giving me the opportunity to do this broadcast at the last minute. And looking forward to doing more podcasts in the future. And everybody, please support this broadcast. It's a good one.
Well, yeah, and I want to plug that you can do so by listening on our SoundCloud channel at soundcloud.com/ppwp. By listening, you support the podcast. You hear it, share it with others, let them hear it. But you can also financially support the podcast. It's patreon.com/ppwp. You can financially give. Trust me, it is going to be worth your time to give on the Patreon. This is not me just begging for money or anything like that, but it helps the podcast to be even bigger and better. It allows us to get a mixer so I can have even more guests on. I can have roundtables. I can do more content. It just allows me to do more stuff. It allows for a webcam so we can do a video podcast. So just your financial support will make this podcast better.
And once again, we're not going to be censored. We're going to just tell open-minded and how we feel about things. This is about this broadcast. Unlike most broadcasts out there that have a script, we're unscripted. So go ahead, try to finance us. We appreciate every donation and any type of help y'all can offer.
Yes, and also I'm going to promote all my social media accounts like facebook.com/Power Pro Wrestling. That's our Facebook page. I'm actually Twitter at Robert Red Jr., Instagram Robert Red Jr., youtube.com/user/Robert Red. I'm going to try to live broadcast these more on this so you people can listen to it live, or you can check us out on SoundCloud once this gets edited and uploaded, soundcloud.com/ppwp. Also, just to let you guys know, when you listen to this on Monday, this coming up Monday, I'm going to try to live broadcast a call-in show talking about Monday Night Raw. So Skype me, robert.red.35. If you want to add me on there to Skype with me, I'll gladly talk wrestling with you and all the topics about Monday Night Raw. I'm going to try to live broadcast that. And if you'll check our Power Pro Wrestling page on Facebook, I will give more information. But thank you, Joe, for joining me.
You're welcome.
Hey, this has been Robert Red for the Power Pro Wrestling podcast. We will catch you guys next time. Until then, see you guys later.